Hello Year 10, we are going to do a quick run through today of Act 2, Scenes 2 to 6. I have put together a series of quotations from scenes 3, 4, 5 and 6, and I'm going to talk you through them in just a moment to help you with your demonstrate questions and the task just before that. So the key quotations will help you work out what the most important parts of each scene are and what is going on in general, and I'll just point out some things to do with the genre that the play is from and what the language is suggesting to us. Okay?
So going back to Act 2, Scene 3, the first thing of note is that Jessica, and that's why I've written a J at the end of it, our house is hell and thou a merry devil. She's talking to Lancelot here. Lancelot is the fellow that works in their house. And for her, being stuck in this house with her father, just the three of them, her, Lancelot and Shylock, she feels that the house is hell. We've got some hellish and religious imagery coming in here. References to hell are quite often used for people that are considered non-believers of Christian faith. And you can see already that Jessica's showing some sympathies towards that. Also, we've got the reference to Lancelot as being a merry devil. So Jessica is definitely still Jewish at this point. She feels Jewish. She doesn't feel that she's about to become a Christian. She refers to Lancelot as the devil. He's somebody in their house who actually she really appreciates because he's merry. He improves the house. He makes it a happier place to be. So this is kind of a compliment in a way. Lorenzo, who is thy new master's guest. This is Jessica giving instructions to Lancelot about who he's going to see this evening. She wants to get a letter. Give him this letter. That's Jessica. She wants to get it to Lorenzo, who is thy new master's guest. Lancelot is about to leave Shylock's household and go work for Bassanio. And Lorenzo is friends with Bassanio. He's part of the crew that are going to sail to Belmont. So Lancelot will be going with him. So she gives him instructions to give him a letter. We know that this is a love letter. Lancelot in reply calls her the most sweet Jew. Jessica is set up to be a very kind, very lovely young lady. And she in turn feels that she is ashamed to be my father's child. She doesn't feel connected to her father in the way that you would expect her to. She's embarrassed by him, ashamed to be connected to him. She says that she says, I am daughter to his blood, but not his manners. She recognises that, yes, she is his daughter, but that she is a very different person. She doesn't appreciate the way that Shylock treats people, his aggressiveness, his rudeness. She feels that she's a very different type of person. And in turn, because she has fallen in love with the Christian Lorenzo, she says, I shall end this strife, and that's a line there because we've started a new line on the page. Become a Christian and thy loving wife. She's going to convert, and this would please the English audience in Shakespearean time very much, because you've got a Christian audience watching, and they would have absolutely loved the idea of Jessica choosing to convert to Christianity. And because she's doing so for love, makes it all the more romantic and acceptable to them. Moving on to Act 2, Scene 4. We've got Lorenzo, Gratiano, Lancelot, et al. Et al. Just means and others. She hath directed how I shall take her from her father's house. I picked this quote because I thought it was quite interesting. This is Lorenzo, so I've forgotten to put the character names on here. She hath directed. Jessica knows what she wants. She has a plan. She doesn't expect Lorenzo to just save her, sweep her off her feet. She hath directed how I shall take her. She is very much in charge of this situation. She is leaving her father willingly. Gold and jewels she is furnished with. That means that when she leaves Shylock's house to run away with Lorenzo, she is going to take some gold and some jewels too. There's an important word here we need to think about, and this is a dowry. In this time period, a dowry is the money given to a man from the father. women were considered such a burden in the household that if some young chap would come along and marry your daughter, you would willingly accept and send her off with a lump sum of money to say, I'm so sorry you've had to take my daughter on, she's such a pain. Here is some money for your life to set up and to take her on. Now, with Jessica running away to Lorenzo's not going to get a dowry because Shylock's not agreed to it. He will not agree to the idea of his daughter marrying a Christian. That would be completely against it, which is why she has to run away. So instead, she decides to take some gold and some jewels as a kind of makeshift dowry for him because she feels that Lorenzo deserves it, is what would be expected in that time period. What page's suit she hath in readiness? A page is like a servant, like a helper. So she has come dressed as a male servant, and that's her plan to escape. She's not only going to leave by the window, Lorenzo is going to collect her with her gold and her jewels, she's going to be dressed as a man because the point is it's quite late at night. A young woman out on her own or out with a group of men in that way would seem peculiar. Also, it's a disguise so that nobody spots that Jessica has left. And finally, to sum it up, Lorenzo says, fair Jessica shall be my torchbearer. That is the plan. He's going to take her on the ship to Belmont with him. She is his torchbearer. She's going to work for him. And that's the ruse, to get her away and onto the ship so that they can run away together. Scene 5, we then move on to Shylock and Lancelot. So we're coming back into the house. And Shylock is discussing the fact that he's been invited to go to dinner at Antonio's as part of this deal to try and discuss the deal or sweeten the deal, if you like, to loan the money. He says, I'll go in hate. At no point here is Shylock going willingly. He's disgusted by these people. He despises them. He shall go in hate to feed upon the prodigal Christian. Prodigal meaning like reckless, extravagant. He hates Antonio and he hates everything that he stands for. So he's going to feed upon him. It sounds cannibalistic. He's going to enjoy taking what he can from Antonio, and he will use this to his advantage. Shylock also says, there is some ill brewing towards my rest. He says this to Jessica, and this is dramatic irony. Dramatic irony is when the audience knows more than the character. Shylock's pointing out that he feels something bad is going to happen. Something is ill brewing, something bad. He's got a bad feeling about something, but he can't quite work out what it is. We know it's because his daughter is about to run away with a Christian. And what's more, later in the play, things will not go to plan for him. So there is some ill brewing towards my rest, and this is dramatic irony. Then there's an aside from Lorenzo. He's not talking so that Shylock can hear. An aside is important because it allows us to hear two characters speaking to each other that other characters can't hear, to develop the plot further. Or sometimes it allows you to see into somebody's mind, that allows them to air their thoughts. So there will come a Christian by, will be worth a Jewess's eye. This is the final statement Lorenzo makes to Jessica, explaining that he has handed a letter over and that he will come for her this evening. I've noted that it's rhyming. You've got your by and I. It's written in like a very romantic, poetic form. It shows happiness. It gives you a happy tone and a loving tone, which is a stark contrast to the start of the scene where we've got this idea of hatred. And it really sets up this idea of why Jessica wants to leave. She's leaving for a better life. Shylock then shouts to his daughter, do as I bid you. He wants her to stay in the house tonight, look after the house, lock the doors behind him. He's very paranoid in general, and he wants Jessica to stay home and be the little housewife, if you like, his daughter. As he exits the room, or the building rather, to go to the meal, Jessica says, I have a father, you a daughter, lost. The pauses here allow us to read it in different ways and to take different tone from it. If you read it in one way, it suggests, I have a father, that she is going to keep her father. Even when she leaves, she'll still acknowledge that he is her father. However, you, a daughter lost. So if you read it one way, it sounds like Jessica will still have a father even after she's gone, but that Shylock will probably disown her. He will have lost a daughter. However, on a second reading, you could look at it as, I have a father, you a daughter, lost. This word lost could attach to both parts of this subordinate here. So I have a father, you a daughter. Both of us have lost something. So it depends on how you want to read it. Either way round, there's an element of loss here. And it just signifies to us that Jessica does feel a little bit sad about what's happening. However much she feels that her house is hell. Finally, moving on to scene 6, which is the escape scene. As Lorenzo turns up at her window, she questions, just to be absolutely certain, who is that down there in the dark? And he replies that it is Lorenzo, her love. And she says, my love indeed, for who love I so much. I've picked this quote out because I think it's important to note that Jessica loves Lorenzo beyond anybody else. She definitely loves him more than her father at this point in time. She feels safer leaving with him to an unknown world than staying in that house. She also says, catch this casket, it is worth the pains. That's the casket that she's chucking out the window that's got gold and jewels in it. It's worth the pains to catch it, literally, as in she's going to chuck it, it's going to be heavy. It'll be worth it, though, when you realise what's inside. But also the pains that they're going to leave and to set themselves up with a new life. So the word pains has got a duality, two meanings to it. The phrase love is blind, which is beautiful, and I feel is quite an overarching theme in the play. This is a comedy, and in Shakespearean comedies, you have got certain elements. You've got marriage and love and relationships as your key point. So if we pop down some ideas here, we've got marriage is a key part of the genre, comedy genre to be precise. You have got some other things that we're going to come across, which is usually a villainous character who learns a lesson. And in this case, that's Shylock. You often have cross-dressing, which, remember, is ironic because in Shakespeare's time, women were not allowed to perform on the stage. Therefore, female characters were portrayed by men. And if you then get a woman dressing up as a man, as quite frequently happens in these Shakespearean comedies, it gets really confusing, but it's also quite comical. You've got a man pretending to be a woman, pretending to be a man. Which is all supposed to add to the humour of the situation. You've also got a lot of puns and wordplay, which we can see in some of the more comedic scenes. So we've got this idea that love is blind, which is absolutely integral to our comedy genre. It's an overarching theme. Portia, you can tell, already has feelings for Bassanio, besides, any concerns she might have. He hasn't got any money, and she has. But love transcends that and goes beyond that. The same is for Lorenzo and Jessica. Love is blind. It transcends. It goes beyond Christianity and Judaism. It doesn't have any boundaries. When you look at Antonio offering his life, his purse, and his extremist means, he'll put himself through whatever it takes in a loving way towards Bassanio. Bassanio was willing to borrow large sums of money to risk going to Belmont to try the casket test, which, remember, if he fails on the casket test, he is never allowed to marry another woman. That's part of the deal. Love is blind throughout this play, and I feel it's quite a strong theme and a really good quote to hold on to use if you ever get a question about relationships or love in the play. Finally, Cupid would blush to see me transform to a boy. So that's just a reminder of this cross-dressing that comes into the comedy genre. She's pointing out that it is comical. She's almost embarrassed to be dressed in this way. So hopefully some of these quotes will help you out when it comes to your questions, and some ideas on things like themes and historical context as well. Don't forget, when you're writing, bear in mind, not only do you need to discuss the language, but you also need to be able to talk about the context of the time period and the context within which the play was written.